Mystery Tour memories will take you back, way, way back, to the sensational, swinging 60s. Groovy London was the place to be. Revolutions in fashion. Dazzling flair on the football field. Hippies, psychedelia, and at the head of it all, the fabulous Beatles. Hello, I'm Victor Spinetti, and the film you're about to see is a collection of very special and enduring personal memories of encounters with the Beatles on their magical mystery tour.
The meeting at Paul McCartney's house came only a few days after Brian Epstein's death, which was over August Bank Holiday weekend in 1967. A lot of people thought it was rather callous that Paul seemed to be sort of putting work before everything else so soon, when it hadn't even been a funeral for Brian Epstein. It wasn't callousness. He had some very good reasons, actually, and the main one was to keep the group together and working. He feared that in the wake of Brian Epstein's death, that the Beatles would clear off to India to the retreat of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the giggling little guru who was teaching them transcendental meditation, that they would go off to India with him and never come back together again as a working band, were his words to me. It was his baby. Magical Mystery Tour was Paul's baby all the way through. But the hidden agenda that he had was not just to produce a film for television, but in fact to launch himself as a producer of film. He hoped that at best this would be the beginning of a new phase for the Beatles, that he would lead them now away from touring, which they had stopped the previous year. Concert tours were out of the question, but to lead them away from simply recording in the recording studios to making movies, because he figured that if he was able to send a movie around the world, a feature-length movie to be shown in theatrically in cinemas around the world, those tours of film could replace the concert tours, which had been so lucrative in the past several years, but more to the point, had also kept up the interest in the Beatles.
Mike McCartney recalls its zany origins.
The time that I saw anything called Magical Mystery Tour was going to our kid's house in London, and there's a round circle. I said, what's that he'd drawn? I said, what's that? He said, oh, it's a film called The Magical Mystery Tour. I said, looks like a round piece of paper to me.
He showed me this now famous clock face or cake or whatever you want to call it on a piece of paper, where he had drawn very carefully segments of the programme that he planned called Magical Mystery Tour, and it was all cut into pieces of the cake. And he said it was because he wanted to give each of the Beatles an adequate chunk of it to do what they liked with.
When all the segments are done, filled in, then we've made a film. I said, that's a good idea. I like that.
The elaborately decorated mystery tour bus set out from London on Monday the 11th of September 1967 on its roller coaster trip. In 1967, Ted Odell had a daily round of food deliveries in the Newquay area, and he was introduced to the Beatles as the town's very popular Eggman. And with John Lennon's I Am the Walrus still fresh in their minds, it must have been quite a coincidence for the famous four to discover a real Eggman.
I came into the Sailor's Arms delivering my eggs like I did every week, and the barman said to me, "Oh, the Eggman's here." And he said, "We've got some celebrities in this morning." So I looked around and they're sitting here with the Beatles. So I grabbed my heart and came across to speak to the Beatles because it was fantastic to see them here in Newquay. The following day, I was up at the Atlantic Hotel delivering my eggs, and the kitchen porter came in and said, "I don't know what's going on outside, but the Beatles have just got off their bus and they're taking photos of your van."
Many of their loyal fans, it became a mission to get beyond the security and into the hotel. Not many managed to achieve that, of course, but here are two success stories. Chris Parkin and Frank Jones, two local lads who got closer than most to their heroes.
Well, I remember in 1967, when the Beatles arrived in town, I was a young 20-year-old, and a friend of mine who happened to be the hotel head waiter said, "Do you fancy meeting the Beatles?" I said, "Yeah, fantastic idea." And he said, "Right, well, if you dress yourself up tidy and put a shirt and tie on, and come on duty with me when I go on, I'll get you in." We got to the hotel, surrounded by screaming kids and police, TV, media, etc. The police opened up the crowd and we walked straight through the crowd, straight up to the entrance. A friend then said, "I'm going on duty, you go to the cocktail bar and I'll see you later." And I boldly walked up to the bar and ordered the lager and lime as you did in those days. Looked around and there's Paul McCartney standing about 2 feet away from me, Ringo and the rest of the guys just chatting and talking with the film crew. And I had to stop and think, well, this is really happening. And I was in a total awe of the situation.
As the Beatles went into the hotel, one of the lads who was a waiter in town, he followed them, the Beatles in, and said to the doorman, "I'm Rod Sumter, European surfing champion." Doorman sends him through. Well, apparently the next day, the real Rod Sumter finds out about it, storms up to the hotel, straight into the receptionist, and turns around to the receptionist, "How about someone's been here the other day impersonating me?" "And who you?" said. "I'm the Rod Sumter." "Oh, no, sir, the real Rod Sumter came up here the other night and actually had dinner with the Beatles," which made the real Rod Sumter really pissed off.
A short while later, I heard the piano playing in the distance and followed the sound through to the ballroom. And then, to my amazement, Paul's sitting at the piano playing quietly away on his own. So I cheekily walked over to the piano and leaned on the piano and chatted to him for a while until he got, I think, bored with the fact that I was there. And I decided I'd better move off and leave him to it. So that was my encounter with Paul.
Yes, when we finished work, we came up here with all my friends, waiting for the Beatles to come back off the Magical Mystery Tour. And we looked down, we seen the two limos coming up the hill. And the first limo, John got out with George, and I asked him for his autograph, and he just walked past me. I thought, oh, he's had a bad day. So next minute, Paul's behind with a ring on. I said to Paul, "Can you give us your autograph, Paul?" He turns around and said, "Who should I make it out to?" I said, "Pinky and Frank." And he goes, "Oh, Pinky, eh?" And everyone laughed. I didn't have a clue what he was on about.
The group, their film crew and passengers made the most of the beautiful Cornish scenery by taking the bus along the coast road to nearby Watergate Bay. As well as shooting scenes for their movie, the boys were relaxing and soaking up the sea air.
And then the whole interview thing was another story in its own right. And I did the right thing and did it all the right way. I asked Tony Barrow if I could interview one of the boys for the BBC. And he said, yes, of course, no problem, but not till after Easter. And this was in September. And he'd booked them up solid and promised them no more radio interviews. But luckily, I'd asked him in the lift at the hotel going down to supper one night. And Mal had been in the lift. And God bless Mal, much miss Mal. He told the boys, and suddenly George came up and asked me. He said, no, we'll do it. And that was magic.
Who had the original idea for Magical Mystery Tour?
I think Paul had the idea and wrote a song called Magical Mystery Tour. And so we decided to do it now so that we have it ready by November or December.
Are there any plans at the moment for a full-length film? What is the position?
The contract we signed with United Artists was for 3 films. The thing is, we can do it any time we want. Wanted to do a film that sort of might mean something to either us or to the people who will go to watch it. We've got to have something good, and how we visualise the film, it's got to be at least the difference between the song Help and Sgt. Pepper. We'll probably end up by not having a big production team film it all.
Rather like you're doing this one?
Like, yeah, more this idea where we'll help to direct the thing and probably to edit it. So the more people involved, the less of our movie it tends to be.
How are the 4 of you going to incorporate your numbers in it?
Well, the Magical Mystery Tour, that song will be played at the beginning, showing the people coming and getting on the coach, all that bit. And the other songs, we'll be doing those next week in the studio. Because it's called the Magical Mystery Tour, then this is just a typical coach tour. But anything can happen. You see, that's the difference, because it's magic, then we can do anything.
The Ringo interview, the interview that never was, he didn't want to be left out, and bless him, I mean, they were good mates, and he wanted to do it. I think we'd been thrashed at table football, and it was a non-event. I mean, Ringo is hard work to interview. I mean, you long question, and it's no, yeah, I haven't really thought about it.
How much direction have you been doing in this film that you're doing at the moment?
Practically none. In fact, none.
Have there ever been moments when you've wanted to step in and say?
Not really, no.
Just been content to sit back and let the others?
Direct, yeah.
Have you been to the cinema at all recently? Do you ever go or not?
Not recently, no. Oh, yes, I have. John and I went one afternoon in the local. But, you know, it was full of kids, but it was great because we just went in and nobody noticed us. And it was 2 terrible films, so we went late in the afternoon and saw half of the first feature. Wasn't much, and then the first half of the second feature. And they were both useless, so we came out.
What were they?
Well, I'm not telling you.
Fair enough.
Do you know Great-Great-Aunt Mary's birthday?
You own it, and I'll play it.
Find My Past, sponsors Times Gone By.
We make tyres that help you stop shorter in the wet. Your journey, our passion. Bridgestone.